If these people are so happy, who's unhappy? Well, the answer is the people who produce natural gas. The Devons, the Chesapeakes, the Encanas, and these other, the Petroquest, and people like that, they're very unhappy about this. So what they want more demand for natural gas. You get more demand, principles of economics class, more demand means the price will go back up. So guess where they are looking? Again, Ole Miss graduates, map of Louisiana, as it turns out. Where they are looking is right down here off of Lake Charles and a little bit here off the tip of the Gulf of Mexico. Because what you'll see there is when the price of natural gas was real high. Remember those 4 or 5 years the price was real high? We thought we're running out of natural gas. So what we did, we built about 4 LNG import terminals down there. Okay? And it looked like the right thing to do, right? We'll bring in that natural gas from other places like we do oil. Seemed like a really good thing to do. Now, every one of those plants is basically idle because there's no need to import natural gas. We can get all we want right here in the United States. We got more than we need in the United States. Now, what the producers want is they want a lot of money. They want these people to be allowed to convert those import terminals into export terminals. So they can take all this surplus natural gas, ship it to the Japanese who now want to get wean off of nuclear and go to another power source, hey, natural gas. They're going to, the Panama Canal, I think it's in 2014, will now be wide enough to handle LNG tankers. So they want to convert those, but you have to say, may I? You have to go to the Department of Energy, you have to go to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and say, may I make this conversion? And of course, all the power companies are saying, please let them do this. Dow Chemical Company is saying, no way, do not let them do this. We like low natural gas prices. And so there's this civil war going on between the folks in the southern part of the state and the folks in the northwestern part of the state. It's going to be, I'm sure what's going to happen is they're going to build those plants, which for Lake Charles, you're from Lake Charles, this is going to be huge. It cost about $6.5 billion to convert one of these suckers to a liquefaction plant. This is very, very expensive to do. So let's see, I was going to mention this. I'm going to skip past this. This just talks about that one import terminal there. Now, by the way, this whole thing about the price of natural gas is very important to the Haynesville Shale. And the reason it's very important to the Haynesville Shale is because you remember the map of the United States where the shale plays all over the United States? Unfortunately for us, our wells are very expensive. They're very deep, much deeper than the Eagle Ford and the Marcellus Shale. And so it cost us about $9.6 million per well versus $5.6 million in the Eagle Ford in South Texas or Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania. That's one problem. Our wells are much more expensive. The second problem is that when you drill a well in the Haynesville Shale, all you get is natural gas. If you go to the Eagle Ford in South Texas or parts of the Marcellus Shale and you drill, you get natural gas and oil, whose price is still very, very high. So guess what we've seen? Well, by the way, if you look at the rate of return on equity, that little bitty bar down there, the Haynesville Shale, look how small it is relative to the liquids rich, the wet place where you get oil too. You know, and as a result, because our rate of return on equity is so low, there has been a major exodus of wells out of the Haynesville Shale. We've had a 67% decline in the number of wells up in the northwestern part of the state. They're going to these other richer plays. So this is a very important issue for Shreveport, and this is going to be a big issue for us going forward. I wish I had time to talk to you about the oil plays, the oil shale. There's a big oil shale play going right across the top of Baton Rouge between here and Alexandria called the Tuscaloosa Marine Shale. Watching that very carefully, some initial wells being drilled. That could turn into a huge job thing for us. If you're up in the Monroe area, there's my favorite name for a new shale play, the Lower Smackover, is up there, and they're starting to look at that very closely. It should be very good. Now, let me finish by saying this. This is going to work out about right. When you start getting depressed about how things are going in our country or in our state or wherever, I want you to think about these two guys here. A lot of people know who the guy is on the left. How many people know who the guy is on the left? Anybody know who the guy is on the left? No, the guy on the left, my left. Yeah, it's Karl Marx. The guy on the right is Adam Smith. Most people know about Karl Marx, but very few people know about Adam Smith. Adam Smith wrote the first economics textbook in 1776, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of Wealth of Nations. These two guys had very different ideas about how economies should be run. For example, Karl Marx said, from each according to his abilities, to each according to his needs. If you do nothing else tonight, you get down on your hands and knees, you thank God Almighty you don't live in some place where somebody else has determined what your needs are. They never understand your needs the way you understand your needs. He said the theory of communism can be summed up in one sentence: abolish all private property. If you do nothing else tonight, get down on your hands and knees, you thank God Almighty you live in a place where you can own your own car, own house, you can own your own building, you can own your own home. You don't get to do that in a communist society. Adam Smith, on the other hand, had this highfalutin sentence: competition alone regulates prices with equity. It alone restricts him to moderation which varies little. It alone attracts with certainty provisions where they are wanted, or labor where it is required. That's just a highfalutin way of saying that the best technique ever invented by man for deciding how much of something should be produced, what its price should be, how many people should be hired, how much they should be paid, is good old supply and demand. I wonder which one of these two guys had the best ideas. Well, as it turns out, we had this great market experiment that occurred a little over 50 years ago. When these two countries, North Korea and South Korea, split apart in July of 1953, North Korea went the way of Karl Marx. South Korea went the way of Adam Smith. Let's look at what the results were like in this market experiment 50 years later. 50 years later, real gross product per capita in North Korea only $1,300 a person. Percent below poverty so large they don't want to report it. They use a third of their people in agriculture and they're still starving. In the United States, we use 2% of our people in agriculture, and we feed ourselves and much of the rest of the world. Compare that to South Korea, real gross domestic product 11 to 12 times higher than that in North Korea. Percent below poverty, only 4%. Percent in agriculture, only 3.6%. But you know what? These are just boring numbers. Let me show you a better way of evaluating this. This was taken out of the National Geographic around 2004. This is a picture of the United States taken at night with a satellite. Okay? Because it was taken in 2004, there's not quite as many lights on right down here as there were when this picture was taken. This is what South Korea looks like at night. This vast dark area is what North Korea looks like at night. There's not a light on in North Korea. As a matter of fact, if you back this up just a little bit more, this is Japan down along here, South Korea, North Korea. This vast dark area here is the USSR and Red China. If you do nothing else tonight, you get down on your hands and knees and you thank God Almighty that somewhere, sometime in the past, your ancestors decided to go the way of Adam Smith instead of Karl Marx, because I promise you, that made all the difference in your lives. Enjoyed being with you folks here today. Thanks for your attention. Okay?